next time I guess we can do one on your channel. That's one of the ones that are in the series you're doing.
Sure. Yeah, I filmed my halfway mark video because I'm 70 books through the 140. I put a whole list of, all the books that are to come. There's some great ones on there, but I'm up for basically anything. But when you look at that list, just hit me up and we'll plan the next one.
I'm interested in Delany because I've never read any Delany, and that's supposed to
So
be weird as well.
yeah, Babel 17 is on the list coming up, and then we also talked about Solaris by
Yep.
Lem.
Yeah.
Um, I do want to read some other ones from Delany. I'm totally down to read some of his other stuff. Maybe not Dahlgren right away.
Right. Yeah. I
I
think he.
recently
Oh, go ahead.
I recently got that one. I just never realized that book just weighs a lot, even as a paperback, and I think
Oh.
it's like 800 pages. And I think it's one you need to build up, like read some of Delaney's stuff, and this is almost like his masterpiece. So at some point I want to work my way up to that, but I'm not there yet.
So apparently he wrote a novel called Hog. Have you heard of this?
I have heard of that one. I don't really have a desire to read that
No
one.
way. I won't even touch it. I mean, all the horror YouTubers are like, this is the goriest, grossest, most extreme book I've ever read. And I just didn't expect that. When I first heard
Yeah,
about that, I was like, wow.
I read Naked Lunch,
Mhm.
and I don't know if you've read that one.
I have. Yep.
The first half of that can be pretty horrific, and this
Yeah.
is supposed to just put that to shame. Just
Absolutely. Whew.
yeah.
Ira, tell me again the name of the series that you're currently reading.
It's a list of books that Easton Press put
Okay.
together called the Masterpieces of Science Fiction, and I just found this list like about 25 years ago, before I was really into the internet or other people, recommending great books to me, and I've found so many great authors and books through this list. So I'm reading through the whole 140 list, and I'm
That's
halfway
awesome.
through at this point.
Have you liked most of them? Which
Yeah, almost all of them. There's definitely books that aren't really science fiction on the list. It kind of makes you scratch your head. Um, I'm okay with it because they're all good books, but
yeah.
even, I'm just a lover of reading. Even like my least favorite book that I've read on this list is something I probably would have tried to read anyways. And I feel like at the end of a bad book, I still feel better than at the end of like watching a bad movie,
Yeah.
even though you invest more time into it, I think, just from the love of reading or something. But
Absolutely. Well said. I agree. All right. Sorry, we got off on a tangent there, but I just like chatting about all kinds of stuff.
no, it's great. I just did a video with Sean D. Stanfast and Scott Danielson talking about a Simak book, and there wasn't much to talk about. We ended up just rambling about all kinds of stuff on the video.
So who are those guys? Are those sci-fi booktubers?
Yeah, Sean D. Stanfast, he kind of reads everything, but he loves kind of the golden age of science
Oh,
fiction.
okay.
One of his favorite authors is Clifford Simak, who is one of my favorite authors, and we just kind of connected. And he's been reading a book a month, and I've kind of jumped on and started participating on his channel. It's been a lot of fun.
I have a physicist buddy that has a sci-fi collection that puts mine to shame, which is absolutely insane. One of these days, I'm just going to go over to his house and do a tour for the channel.
Oh, that'd be great.
And yeah, Simak, like number one for him. He's obsessed with Simak, and I think a lot of people are. I find his writing really kind of pastoral.
Yeah.
It's strange. Like and I've only read, sorry, I've only read the Science Fiction Hall of Fame story. I don't know if you've only read novels or short stories, but there's this guy that's agoraphobic, and he has to go to Mars to save his old Martian friend who's dying, but he's agoraphobic and doesn't want to leave his house. And that's the only one I've read by him. But I've heard Way Station is supposed to be really incredible.
Yeah, Way Station and City are his two most popular. City he wrote like 20 years before Way Station. I like it maybe slightly better. They're both great. I've
Doesn't it
read like
doesn't it
go ahead.
have doesn't it have dogs? Like talking
Yeah,
dogs?
Yeah, the dogs and robots have kind of inherited the earth,
So
and
brilliant.
it's definitely a fix-up novel,
Hmm.
but it's just so good, and it's so short, but he can really make you think. He doesn't answer a lot of questions, but he poses a lot of really great philosophical and religious questions.
Wow.
I've read like 9 of his books now, and I didn't realize how many religious themes are in his books.
Well,
And
is it
you don't have to
Waystation
be
the
religious.
is it Waystation the Pope on the cover?
No, that's Project Pope.
Oh, that's Project Pope. Okay.
Yeah. I
I, I
recently read that with those guys.
I hate to admit it. I started City and DNF'd it before I had a channel. Because my buddy was like, "You got to read Simak and you got to read City," and I think I read like 40 pages, and it was all a bunch of realtors in rooms screaming about the fact that people were leaving cities and moving to rural environments, and I just petered out. I couldn't keep up with it. And I'm sure I probably almost got to the dog stuff, which I would have loved, but I couldn't.
Yeah, and even the city part of it kind of has a, there's a theme of like it was kind of the nuclear scare that the vast majority of humanity could be wiped out if they all congregated in a city.
Yes, you're right. I
And
remember
so
that.
it gets a bit deeper where there was this a reason to leave the city and go to your huddling places and stuff. Like I'm definitely rereading that one on the channel here soon.
Nice.
That like I'm saving 10 for the last 10 to do, and that's one I'm gonna save because that was like one of my all-time favorite SF books.
I all I know is when I when my Zelazny video blew up. One of the things that I loved about that Zelazny book was there's a woman who's blind that has a seeing eye dog, and the seeing eye dog is genetically modified to be able to think a little bit and talk. And he is warring with his kind of canine nature and his morphed brain. And he goes at one point, and they all have self-driving cars, and he goes on like this quest. He gets in the car and puts in coordinates and goes out to this area that is unexplored and meets a wild hound and has this experience with him. And I just absolutely loved that. And I feel like there could be an anthology of dog stories that would be really cool, and cat stories. Fritz Leiber is constantly writing about cats, but I really like, and this feels very science fiction. I mean, I know in horror you can get pets, but oftentimes the pets become kind of evil monsters. I feel like science fiction often considers pets in a way that no other fiction does. That's really incredible.
Yeah, that like kind of speculating on the evolution of a dog or a cat, or we move on and they become more human, and all kinds of weird themes and ideas.
Yeah, yeah, really interesting. Really
I wanted to
interesting.
ask you, like when you do a deep read, will you reread the book, or were you taking like notes along the way, or how do you remember so much about it?
I take insane notes. So here's my hole in zero. I don't know if you can see that,
Yeah.
but it's each chapter summarized and my thoughts on each chapter broken down as I read. And a lot of them can just be one word because that's enough for me to remember
Yeah.
what I want to say. So that's my
Some
notes.
sort of association or something.
Yeah, and I think that just came from years of being an English major. I just got this habit of, and I used to write in books insanely, where I would just, next to every paragraph, write a quick summary of what that paragraph was about. And if I couldn't summarize it, I would read it again and read it again until I understood it enough to summarize it. and it's just a trick that's stuck with me, and it got to the point that I kind of look for that, if that makes sense. That if a book is, and that's not true. Like, straightforward books are fine with me as long as there's something going on that is kind of exciting, because I mean this was such a fun, wild ride, and if we compare it to, I'm trying to think of just a straightforward science fiction writer,
like adventure fiction from like Edgar Rice Burroughs or something basic like that.
Yeah, the one I can think of that I read was Demon Breed by Schmitz. Yeah, James H. Schmitz. I didn't take a lot of notes on that book. I wasn't like every paragraph and every chapter like, wow, what does this mean in the whole of it? It was just a good time, and there were cool otters that could talk. As you can tell, I really like genetically mutated animals in science fiction. For some reason, that is really fun for me. But yeah, I like that as well. That can be just as fun. But yeah, when I find a text that's starting to really challenge me, I slow way down and I start taking really extensive notes, because I want to do a deep read, and I want to make sure that I understand it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like, I tried to read Ulysses and I DNF'd it. I'm not going to lie. That's like I think a rite of passage for English majors, and some people have read it and absolutely do love it. My sister-in-law Dana started reading it, and she's like, I can't believe you DNF'd this. This is wonderful. And she's right. It was so awesome at the beginning, and then halfway through she DNF'd it because it got to a point. I mean, it's an interesting book, and there are probably, I'm guessing, Booktube channels just on Ulysses, right? Talking about that. So there are times when I'm just like, okay, I can't understand this, and I have to quit. You know what I mean? Those books are out there. I have to enjoy understanding it, like I said. And Riders of the Purple Wage is a perfect example where I just didn't enjoy understanding it. I really tried, and it felt like chaos for the sake of chaos, which I feel like chaos should be there to make a point, like I feel like this book does. Yeah, I don't know.
So when you got into this one, you said, this is challenging, this is like what you're into. You took it upon yourself to fully understand it, and of course, like when rereading chapters of, if you felt necessary, detailed notes, all that. Okay,
yep.
Nice.
Yep, yeah. And this has been amazing, because I don't want to write in my books anymore. I don't want to hurt this book, because this is a really good condition copy of this book. But being able, like, notes on the phone has been the best. And it looks ridiculous sometimes on my channel, because I'm like scrolling through, figuring out what I need to say next. And I started by using notebooks. You can't see them here. But writing all that out by hand, my arm gets super tired. It's ridiculous. Well, now that I think about it, texting should probably do the same thing. But yeah, just being able to put the book down, quickly text, and then type in a text there on the Notes app. It's brilliant. Mm-hmm. It's really brilliant. And then I just follow that along.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're kind of one of the, I've seen, people do, I call them kind of like essay videos. Mm-hmm. A lot of times you can tell they're reading from a script, and they might have like pictures over top of them. And they're very in-depth. They're very well thought out, scripted essay-type videos on books or themes or whatever the case may be.
Quinn.
But I think you were the first person I saw, like, sitting in front of a camera, describing books in detail and, fully mastering the book in a way. And that, I think your deep read is just the perfect term for that. And it's something to aspire to, I guess, for me anyways, at some point.
It's funny because I put this channel off for a long time, and Jason, my brother, who who did the channel with me, we would like every time I'd go visit him, he'd be like, "Dude, make your channel." And we had been watching a lot of sci-fi booktube, and Quinn's Ideas. I don't know if you've watched Quinn's Ideas.
I've seen some videos. Yeah.
Yeah, that guy is incredible. He makes these essays and he gets these images in the background, and is just, and like you said, he's reading his script. That's really well written, and that's what I thought I had to do. So I was working on this video for probably a year with my brother, like, just turn on the camera and talk about the channel. Turn on the camera. And I just didn't, I was so scared. I didn't feel like, so thinking about those big scripts and everything, finally, and my brother is a trained actor, he was just like, sat me down and he's like, "Okay, what do you want to talk about?" And I was like, "I don't know. Tales of Mystery Imagination by Alan Parsons Project" was the first video on our channel. Because our channel was originally going to be music and books, music inspired by books. So I just sat down and he's like, "Okay, talk about it." And I did. And he gave me tips, acting tips. And it was incredible. It really was. And it was really scary to me. And I think in the long run, I like just talking on it with notes, because I can riff, I can go into different places. I don't know how well the essay format would work for me in the long run, and I know there's a lot more viewers in it, but I like the rapport of just talking to the audience like they're sitting in a room with me chatting about a book. I think there's something to that, and that's what
I think.
Go ahead.
For me, if I've thought about doing some essay type things. I might dabble in it every once in a while, but it kind of seems like homework and something that I'm not that into. And it's like, if I'm trying to get money and do that, like, there's easier ways to get money doing something you don't like to do. But just being like, I think it really comes out when you can tell when people enjoy what they're doing. And so, like, speaking off the cuff and just riffing and doing that, it's like, I can do that. I love doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, and that was one of the first things when I started, because I watched your channel before I made a channel. What did you start your channel?
It was April 22, I think.
Yeah, because I remember I watched you for about a year.
April 23. Yeah.
Yeah, because I watched you, Richard Rempel, Vintage SF, Sci-Fi Scavenger, and Moyd, of course, an outlaw bookseller. And then Bookpilled I was just starting to watch when I started my channel. But I liked that all of you had this connection with the viewer that just kind of feels like, when you watch a movie with your friends and you walk out of the movie theater and everybody's talking about the movie and people are throwing ideas around. It felt like that. It was really incredible just hearing you guys talk about these books, and also being able to decide, oh, okay, I can get that off my shelf. Right? Yeah. Because that's incredible. And listening to you guys, I was able to, because my collection, it was out of control, because all I did was just say, okay, I'm kind of interested in sci-fi. And at that point, I teach, so I have weird hours, so I could go to yard sales and estate sales and book sales and all that. And my collection, anything that looked sci-fi, I got, and my collection was terrifying. It was like Akita, right? At the biggest growth stage. I was like, what am I going to do with all these books? And Booktube allowed me to start going, okay, James Tiptree Jr. sounds super interesting. E.E. Doc Smith, probably not up my alley, right? And I learned that from watching you guys, being able to figure out, and that doesn't mean that E.E. Doc Smith is bad. It just means it's not something that I would probably get into, right? Because your kind of own taste, and yeah, watching you guys was incredible for that. I was super scared when I started my channel, and every one of you guys have made it so incredible on here. It's been great.
My favorite part of this has been what I honestly think is like kind of real friendships I've made with like you and Richard and Matt and all these people that I still want to collaborate with and talk to and do all this kind of stuff. So
the collaborating is so much fun. Chatting with people.
Oh, it's fun.
Yeah. I really love it. You're a Stephen King fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that when I first started watching you, but you've been talking about him a little bit more. Yeah, I read.
Yeah, he was kind of my, I call him like my gateway drug into reading.
Me too.
I still like him. There's this cozy feeling. I know cozy's kind of weird to use for horror.
Makes perfect sense.
When I pick up a King book, I just his writing, it just feels so comfortable. I can burn through 1,000-page Stephen King book like quickly.
Yeah.
And I love it. I've read 2/3 of everything he's written at this point.
So I read Carrie to Insomnia. Everyone. And loved it religiously. Like as a like 90. I started in the late 80s to the mid 90s and just everything. And then after that, I tried to read Under the Dome, and the Dome was so freaking interesting. And then Stephen King was like, oh, and then this cop was kind of corrupt and he had a son. And then I was like, done. And I just quit. And it's funny because when I was a teenager, I would read those books and I felt like I was best friends with all those people in those books because he was so good at character. Nobody writes character like Stephen King. And then now I have a hard time taking it. I tried Lisey's Story because I was dating a girl that was like, Lisey's Story is the most beautiful novel I've ever read. And I was like, fantastic. I love Stephen King. I'm going to check it out. And I opened Lisey's Story and read like the first 70 pages and just petered out. I DNF'd, and I don't know what it is. And I keep buying his books. I get a first edition every time it comes out from Barnes and Noble, but I can't finish one. And I'm hoping to find a new way in there, but I wonder if the magic's impossible to regain or.
Well, I would say like, I haven't read Under the Dome, and he got most of his inspiration for that. I think he's even mentioned this from a Simak book called All Flesh is Grass.
Oh.
Where this dome traps everyone in Simak's book. This dome traps everyone in this town, and they're trying to figure it all out and stuff. I still haven't read that one yet, but I would say he wrote so much. He tried to do everything. He wrote like mysteries. He wrote just general fiction. He tried to do all these different kinds of books, and I've read all the way up through. I haven't finished Needful Things yet.
It's a good one. I like that one.
I tried that as a kid, and for some reason, like life took over, and I never finished it. That's going to be maybe my next read of his, but
it's a thick one.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think about if I was going to try to recommend you something.
Yeah.
Have you read Doctor's Sleep?
No, I saw the movie.
Yeah, it's like a sequel to The Shining, and I enjoyed that one. A lot of people didn't, but that was one of his more recent ones that I thought was interesting.
I almost walked out of the movie theater in the baseball kid scene. That was some of the roughest theater. Do you remember that? Did you see that movie?
I think I saw the movie. I can't remember that scene.
It's a feeding scene where they're feeding on The Shining, and it was intense in the movie theater. It went on and on, and I stayed. I really like that director. What's his name? Flanagan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but boy, that was harrowing. Wow, that was wild. Yeah, Doctor Sleep. Okay.
And a weird sleeper one for me was Dolores Claiborne. When I lived in Alaska, we had a bunch of friends of ours had a book club where we would read a book. Each person got a turn to pick it out, and then we would watch the movie. So you'd have to pick a book that had a movie to it. And it was a Stephen King book that I had never read, and I was like, I heard the movie's okay, and I picked it out. And it's very different for his writing, but everyone really pretty much enjoyed it. Even it was a lot of people's first time reading a Stephen King book.
Huh.
And then the movie is just really good too on that one.
Huh. Dolores Claiborne. And that one's
a weird one.
And it's thinner. It's a thinner book for Stephen King.
Yeah, it's like 300 pages or something.
Yeah, which for Stephen King is almost a short story.
Yeah. And then, I read his most recent short story collection, You Like It Darker.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I bought it. I haven't read it.
That was pretty good. There was some really good stories in there. Mostly the longer ones, the kind of like novella length or novelette length ones.
How come you didn't talk about it on your channel?
There's some books like I'm like in some weird way I'm like this is a science fiction channel and I'm not going to talk about horror or other things, but sometimes I just like reading and not having the I wouldn't call it the responsibility, or sometimes I still just want to read it for my own personal pleasure and not share anything. And like I've looked at Stephen King's works. Eventually I would like to read everything he's probably written, but like I'd probably only talk about the real science fiction related ones like Under the Dome. I did do a review of Tommyknockers a year ago.
All I remember about Tommyknockers is that woman digging. That's it.